Yo, what up, a-holes? Thank you for tuning into the Holistic A-Hole podcast. My name is Eric Levi, and I'm the Holistic A-Hole, the mommy blogger with balls, the inconvenient truth of health, and a certified holistic nutritional therapy practitioner. What's up, everybody? I don't know why. I was just thinking during that intro, maybe I should say the holistic nutritional therapy practitioner at the beginning, just to gain a little more authority in the podcast, you know, because I feel like maybe I kind of like glaze over that a little bit, because that is kind of like the most important part of getting respect here on this podcast. But you know, it just kind of flows the way it flows. Maybe I'll switch that intro up at some point, but you know, I don't know. I don't know. We gotta tinker. Y'all let me know what you think. Put a little thing on your Instagram story and let me know. Screenshot the podcast playing in your phone or whatever you listen to it in, your big screen HD TV, and put it on your Instagram. Tag me Holistic A-Hole. Let me know if you think I should switch up the intro or maybe add something to it, or just, you know, not do an intro. Just jump right into the topics. But you know, right now I'm chilling. I'm in the spot. I'm in A-Hole Studio, the new A-Hole Studio here, overlooking beautiful San Juan, Puerto Rico, which is under a bit of duress at the moment. If you haven't been paying attention to the news, depending on when you're listening to this, I don't know if you listen to this in the future. Maybe Puerto Rico just burns to the ground by the time you've heard this, and you're like, damn, he was on the front lines. Wow, it's so interesting to hear somebody talk just before Puerto Rico just spontaneously combusts due to the protests. Yeah, it's crazy right now here. People are quite pissed off. I really found a very convenient time to relocate to I was going to say a country. This isn't a country. This is America, but to a place that is undergoing quite a bit of political upheaval. Really, the most political upheaval that has been here in, at least from what the locals say, forever, you know. The governor here is a bit of a scumbag. The politicians here are all terrible. And, you know, I wasn't going to talk about this today, but now that I'm on the topic, why not? The funny thing is since I've been here, I've been here now at this point just about 2 months. And, you know, in the process of you know, all the stuff I had to do here, whether it was find an apartment, get a car, all these things, every local you talk to, they're just like, the government is fucking corrupt here. And I just, you know, I assumed that, but, you know, like I've been to places where the government is corrupt. People don't just come out and say the government's corrupt, but here specifically, people are like, they take the money and they use it for their own things. They buy Porsches and Ferraris and they leave the people and nobody's helping with Maria. It is pretty crazy when you like driving around and there's just traffic lights that don't work. You know, there's just buildings that are just abandoned. It's not like a war zone here. And I would say probably for the most part, Puerto Rico is, at least San Juan is I'd say almost fully recovered, you know. The hurricane was devastating. I think like 3,000 or 4,000 people died. But it's crazy that, you know, the federal government gave Puerto Rico billions of dollars. And the government just took all that money. And they didn't take all the money, they took a lot of it. And then it's like all these text messages came out, like, I don't know, hundreds of text messages came out, and the governor's calling, you know, some lady a whore and you know, talking about it's so crazy, talking about how if one of the other guys in the government shot a woman, he'd be doing the governor a favor. And he's not only is the governor like people want him to step down, and not only is he like, I'm not stepping down, he's like, I'm going to run for re-election. And man, let me tell you something. I respect the balls of that guy. You know, like I don't respect the guy. I think he's done a terrible job. I think he's doing the same terrible job that governors have done here for years. But man, the balls to be like, yeah, I called that bitch a whore. Yeah, I said I want that bitch dead, but I'm not stepping down. You know what? I'm running for re-election, and I'm confident I'm going to win. To have those kind of balls, like that's like the kind of confidence you need to navigate the world nowadays. Like you don't want to be a scumbag like that. Like you want to be moral and ethical and do the right thing. At least I do. But man, you want to walk in a room with that kind of confidence. People respect that shit. But that's not at all, like, has nothing to do with the Holistic A-Hole podcast. I just, that's just what's going on. You know, I'm overlooking the city. That's just what's happening here in my world. So hashtag Renuncio Riccia. But yeah, interesting times. But today I want to talk about, health. I mean, boring health. Jeez, who would have thought anybody wants to talk about health? I love talking about health. And I got 3 hot stories for you today. And, this is like the new format. I like another little sidebar here, but I've been, for the last year, kind of like experimenting with the format. For a while I was doing like one story and just talking for like, a half hour, 45 minutes about one thing. But now I've started doing like this thing of like talking about like 3 or 4 things. And, talking about that for like, 45 minutes or so. So if you like this new way I'm doing it, hit me up. Let me know. Let me know what you like better. You like me to talk about one thing? You like talking about a couple things? Obviously, I like interviewing people, and I know you guys like me interviewing people. I'm trying to do more of that stuff. It's just sometimes it's hard to get a hold of these people, and I don't like to just interview like, some schmo that nobody's ever heard of. But sometimes that's fun too, right? So, I'm just kind of playing with it. So just let me know. Let me know what you like. Hit me up on Twitter, on Facebook. Again, the Instagram story thing. Take a screenshot, put in your Instagram story. Send me a message on Instagram, whatever it is. Let me know what you think, because I want to make you a-holes happy. You're so kind with your time to be in the middle of doing stuff and plug in the a-hole in your earbuds. I want to make you all happy. So let me know what you're thinking. So this first story I want to talk about is a little thing I saw come across one of my social media feeds, and this sucks because we have to get serious now. So not like the things I haven't been talking about haven't been serious, but this is pretty serious right here. A new study was published. Well, it wasn't just recently published, but I don't know why. I just saw it for the first time. But the title of the study is published in the Lancet, which is a fairly reputable scientific journal. Is it a health journal, science journal? It's the Lancet, man. It's like big. It's a big deal. The Lancet Oncology too. So they're talking about cancer here. And the title of this study is "The 30-Day Mortality After Systemic Anti-Cancer Treatment for Breast and Lung Cancer in England: A Population-Based Observational Study." So like one disclaimer I have to give is the information you take out of this study, it's already kind of a little bit flawed. Like you can already find a major critique in it because it's not a randomized control, placebo-controlled, double-blind, whatever, it's not one of those. But at the same time, it's kind of like, it's kind of like an observational thing. Like, oh, it's interesting to find that, things that happen here are also associated with things that happen here. And there's no cause and effect you can take from this, but it is an interesting finding that kind of supports a lot of hypotheses that I believe in, and that a lot of people in the holistic world really kind of attest to, which is that in this case specifically, sometimes chemotherapy is not the best solution to cancer. So, obviously occurrences of cancer, all the cancers have been on the rise for a long time. Breast cancer, lung cancer, that's what this study discusses. But of course, you got prostate cancer, you got cervical cancer, you got lung cancer, brain cancer, testicular cancer, ovarian cancer. You got all the cancers. Come on down, all the cancers. And there's nothing fun about cancer. I learned that in an improv class when I first started doing comedy. I was part of an improv group, and it was like this, hardcore straight edge Mormon group, and I'm the holistic a-hole, and I learned how to be funny or what I thought was funny without cursing and stuff. But like the number one thing they told you was nothing is funny about cancer, and all I wanted to do was cancer improv. Because I thought cancer was hilarious, and they were like, Eric, listen, we got to sit you down. There was nothing funny about cancer. And it's crazy because when you talk, anytime you're on stage, you talk about cancer, it's like you could be in the middle of killing, you could be Dave Chappelle killing, and then you just say the word cancer, and it's like the parking brake gets pulled as the car is going straight downhill, and everything just drops to a halt. People walk out. A glass drops, a bird flies in, shits on the mic. It's just a bad situation. An Asian guy comes out, rings a dong. You get hit in the face with a baseball bat. It's no fun. Nothing's fun about cancer. So I'm going to not have too much fun while I talk about this study, but at the same time, cancer. So this study is a 30-day study. So really, it's like, man, it's hard. It's as I read more and more of these health journals and these studies, it's like you start to really realize, like, sometimes there's these inferences made, and the information it's just not complete, right? Now, I'm saying this, telling you that this is a study that proves my confirmation bias. So I should be like all in on this study right here, but I'm just telling you the things that I already see wrong with it, right? It's not a double blind placebo controlled, randomized whatever study. It's a little loosey goosey with the rules. And 30-day mortality, it's like, this is very specific, right? Like a lot of times people will get cancer and have chemo, and they're not going to die within 30 days. In fact, it has to be pretty substantial. You have to be in a pretty bad place to die within 30 days of chemo. And that's basically what this study is saying. Now, if this was to look at like 120 days, maybe 6 months, maybe like a year, maybe, we could make more specific, more like targeted inferences, like, see, look, like you could live with a disease for forever, right? Like you could, like, it's like saying, like, if you get cancer, we're going to study, is cancer deadly? Well, we studied people for 30 days, and in that 30 days, out of a group of 10,000 people, like 0.01% died in 30 days. So we could assume that cancer's not deadly. But nobody's just dying from cancer in 30 days, unless it's like super aggressive cancer. And I think we can kind of say the same thing about chemo, right? As bad as chemo is, and as lethal as it is, it might not kill you within 30 days. So to try to make an inference and saying, like, or to try to make a conclusion that wow, chemotherapy is definitely good or it's definitely bad in 30 days, that's just not enough time. So the study, my point is, has a lot that it's trying to say, but you have to kind of look at it with a very, keen eye and know that, yeah, like, I can't make a solid conclusion in 30 days, but nonetheless, the authors of this study do in fact make they do make a pretty strong correlation that in a lot of people they can basically make the claim that the people who died while they were getting chemo in this study might have died not because of the cancer they had, but because of the chemotherapy. There was a pretty big cohort of people in this in this study, men, women, young, old, I'm trying to get the exact number here. I should have probably wrote this down, but I did not. I think the total number of people they sampled was close to 30,000 people, and again, it was lung and it was breast cancer, and I mean, the amount of people that were dying, that had died in this. I mean, we're talking like 3% in some cases, 5% in these different, in these different subgroups, plus you had like people who were stage 1 cancer, stage 2 cancer, stage 3 cancer, and people are dying at like a woman with stage 1 cancer under the age of 50, right? A man with stage 2 lung cancer, younger than 30, right? And so they broke it up like that. And there's no like substantial big numbers, it's like 5% of the people died here, 2% of the people died there. Some people had palliative care, which is and curative care. Curative being like direct chemo, palliative being kind of more like lifestyle-based treatment, not specifically chemo, or maybe it was chemo, but not like aggressive chemo treatment. And there's, again, like a lot of inferences made here that you could kind of look at and say, well, I don't know, was it the chemo that they died from, or was it the cancer? And so the thing that I took from this was, it's a pretty long study. I'll put a link to it. You could read it. Reading studies is not the most fun way to spend your weekend. I'll be honest. It's how I've been spending quite a few of my weekends recently, mostly because I got no friends here in Puerto Rico, and I don't speak Spanish. So it's really, I have to just read studies to pass the time. It's that or Netflix, and fuck Netflix. I don't care about Netflix. But a line that I took out of here that I did find interesting, that I think does shed a light onto what this is. I'll just read it to you, which is that surprising that the finding that overweight NSCLC, so that's basically the people who had lung cancer who got chemotherapy, the people with lung cancer patients treated with palliative intent had a reduced 30-day mortality compared with those in the healthy BMI group. Okay. Maybe let me check this again. Hold on a second. 30-day mortality compared with those in the healthy BMI group could be explained by a dose limitation practices. Chemotherapy doses are calculated according to the patient height and weight, but smaller doses than this are often given to patients with higher BMI. Heavier patients had a higher rate of survival. People with heavier BMI are also given lower doses of the chemotherapy compared to lower BMI people. Could indicate that chemo is what is killing people. So basically what that's saying is that they noticed a difference where there were the heavier patients, they give less chemo to than they give to the lighter patients, like people with lower BMIs. Why? I have no idea. I think it might be because people with higher BMI might might be less tolerant to the chemicals in chemotherapy. So if you're a heavier person, they give you a little bit less than they do the lighter people. And in fact, it was the heavier people who had a better survival rate on chemo than the lighter people who got chemo. So what I take from that is exactly what the study is kind of trying to say, which is that the cancer is not what's killing people with cancer who get chemo. It could, in fact, be the chemo. Now, there's a lot of, shenanigans with these hospitals, because anytime you go to a hospital and you're getting chemotherapy and you die, they're going to put cause of death as cancer. They're never going to put cause of death as chemotherapy. So already, if you're an investigator trying to understand this, you're not really going to say, well, it was chemotherapy that killed. It's going to be cancer. So what you have to do is you have to kind of dig into the data and kind of understand more, like, are people, are heavier people, like understanding they get less chemotherapy chemicals than lighter people. Plus, isn't it crazy to think that heavier people will naturally have a higher risk of complicating diseases and shorter lifespans than people with lower BMIs, and yet they're still living longer. So just in that one thing, you're already controlling for all of these different variables. You're controlling for weight, lifestyle, lifestyle habits, probability of death, all these different things, just because we know that a person with a higher BMI has a higher mortality probability than somebody with a lower BMI. So my point is that when you give someone with a higher BMI lower amounts of chemo than you do a lower BMI, yet the person with the higher BMI, body mass index, lives longer, has a lower mortality rate than the person with the lower BMI. Well, what's the variable that changes everything? It's the chemo. It's the chemo, right? So you can just kind of look at that one thing and say, well, hot dang, maybe chemotherapy, maybe there's something there. Maybe the chemotherapy is doing more damage than it is good. Now, I'm not telling anybody to not get chemotherapy. Please, this is my medical disclaimer. If you have cancer, consult with your doctor, right? If your doctor is recommending chemo, go with that. Don't listen to me on this, okay? I'm just merely kind of reiterating and interpreting what I'm reading in this study. I'm not reading a blog, right? I'm not reading, the fake news. I'm not reading NBC News or MSNBC or CNN or ABC. I'm reading the Lancet, right? And I'm just interpreting what they're saying. So it is interesting to say that when I've studied this stuff, there is the effectiveness of chemo has been called into question, especially a lot recently, because a lot of people who are dying of cancer are dying while they're on chemo. Now, I know people who have had breast cancer and have gone through chemo and have survived. So I'm not sitting here saying that chemo doesn't work, although who knows, right? Who knows? Because that person also adopted a very strict, nutrient dense diet, which is amazing because before that they ate like shit. They drank, heavy alcohol. They partied. They didn't sleep. It was a terrible lifestyle. And then when they got diagnosed with cancer, they completely cleaned up their act, completely cleaned up their life. And it just so happened they started doing chemo. So, who knows, right? You can't just say, but that one little part in that study where they compared lower BMI to higher BMI and found lower BMI people, body mass index people, have a higher survival rate. Now, we're not talking a substantially high. We're talking a difference between, I don't know, like 7% and 4% or something like that. But it is interesting to say, well, because higher BMI people get lower doses of chemo and they live longer than lower BMI people who get higher doses of chemo. I mean, it just makes you think, right? Jesus Christ, cancer sucks, man. Cancer sucks. Just don't get cancer. How about that, right? How about, it's like diabetes. Just don't get it, Just do everything you can in your life to not get it. This just blows my mind, as a holistic a-hole. This is the struggle that people just don't understand. It's like, yeah, man, I'm going to get a salad with sardines, right? I'm going to eat the food that nobody else wants to eat. Why? Because I don't want fucking cancer. That's why. Eric, just live your life, man. Just go to Burger King. I used to love Burger King. I've looked at Burger King now. It doesn't look that appetizing to me. But I used to eat all that crap, I walk around, dude. I see advertisements for Slurpees. You know how much I used to love Slurpees? I can't get a Slurpee. I can't drink a Coke. I can't put any corn syrup in my body. First of all, I don't even like it. To me, it tastes so toxic. I've become so sensitive to sugar and to chemicals. It's I can feel every molecule of yellow 11 or orange 9, blue 6, corn syrup, maltose, dextrose. I can feel each of those molecules on my tongue, right? I don't even that gives me no pleasure anymore. I can't smoke cigarettes. I had a very short, brief period of my life years ago where I occasionally smoked cigarettes when I'd go out. Couldn't even inhale. It was impossible for me to inhale. Can't even tolerate a cigarette. Barely drink alcohol. The weed, I like the weed, but I do all these things that I do to prevent cancer because, man, like you can live it up, but as soon as you get cancer, it's like, I would imagine as soon as you get cancer, the first thing you do is you just regret. Maybe you don't make the connection. I don't know. I think a lot of people who get cancer maybe don't make that connection. And that's not to say that people who do all the things that I'm doing don't get cancer. Cancer is such a fucking, it's such a wild card, everything's carcinogenic too. Have you noticed that? Every food that you like, every drink, every, thing in your house is carcinogenic. I mean, the glue they put on to connect wood and the wooden floors, that's carcinogenic. The plastic that holds the water that you drink, that's carcinogenic. The goddamn sun is carcinogenic. Everything is carcinogenic, So it's like, I get it. You can be as much of a holistic a-hole you want, and you might still get cancer. It sucks. But you also have to understand that it's like you are surrounded by cancer. You're surrounded by it. I used to live in New York City, man. I walked outside and I was just breathing cancer. The water I was drinking, it was just straight cancer. So why did I adopt the holistic a-hole principles and practices? Because that was what built the fortress that is my body to keep fucking cancer out. And I mean, this motherfucker is a goddamn, fucking Goldman Sachs bank vault. Right? Like cancer is not getting in here. There's a freaking moat with barbed wire and electric fencing and sharks in the moat and those little fucking piranhas in the moat. Cancer is not getting in here. Cancer is looking at me and it's like, goddamn, how do we get in there? And it's just not. It just can't. But that's not to say like, dude, who knows? Who knows? Like I could be living on soil, living in an apartment building that was built on soil they used to test radioactive whatever, right? There's a Navy base here. I think I heard something recently that there's these Air Force bases around the country and they did some study and it was like, it might have also just been one Air Force base, but like this, like the surrounding area had like the highest rate of cancer of anywhere else in the county or the state or whatever. Because they just would dump, the planes from the Air Force base would take off and land, and the fuel would leak out, and they would use the shit would catch on fire. So they would use this fire retardant, and when it would rain, the rain would basically wash the fire retardant from the Air Force base runways into the streams and the water tables. In the soil around the water base. So everybody who lived within, a short circumference of the Air Force base, the cancer rates were unbelievable. So it don't matter how much kale you eat, how many sardines you eat, how much grass-fed butter you eat, you could still get that fucking cancer. But as long as you protect yourself, you don't got to worry about this shit. Like you want to do as much as you can to not have to worry, should I or should I not have to get chemo? You know what I mean? That's my point. All right, let's move on. So that was the Lancet Oncology. The next one I want to talk about is another study that came out. This I saw published. This was actually a study that was published in the BMJ, the British Medical Journal. We love the British Medical Journal here on the Holistic A-Hole podcast. I'm sure they print some bullshit, but who knows, right? Not in this case. Well, I should say what am I saying here? This is a study that comes from a long-term study that is happening in France. So, like here in the U.S., they've been doing this Framingham heart study for a long time. In France, they kind of have like the same thing going on. It's called the NutriNet-Santé Study. And so it's just like a long-term study with, I think, like 100,000 people. And, basically what they're doing is these people have agreed, and it's just like every year or a couple times a year, they'll get a questionnaire in the mail and they got to fill it out. And then the scientists are, making all of these different inferences from this study. So again, before we even try to break down the data of what this study is, you got to realize that this is not the gold standard of science. This is kind of like, I don't want to say lazy science, because it probably will give a lot of very interesting insights, but you can't make cause and effect relationships and inferences. You can't like assume anything other than just like, wow, this is like an interesting association. But this, what they're talking about here, is the objective was to assess the associations between the consumption of sugary drinks and artificially sweetened beverages and the risk of cancer. Man, we were really talking about cancer today, aren't we? Actually, the name of the study was the Sugary Drink Consumption and Risk of Cancer Results from the NutriNet-Santé Prospective Cohort. So what this was so they're doing this long-term study in France, and what they want to know is what's the connection between sugary beverages and the risk of cancer. So the reason why I even found this in the first place was because the title of the article that I found this study on was published in The Guardian, and it was titled "Sugar in Fruit Juice May Raise Risk of Cancer, Study Finds." And even I found this on a site, I think it was on Drudge, and I think it was like the headline on Drudge was like, sugar in fruit gives you cancer. And then you click on that and it was like, sugar in fruit juice may give you cancer. And then you actually look at the study and it's like, oh, it's actually studying all sugary beverages, including sugary fruit juices. So like I said, when you look at this study, all right, and again, this is a thing that I believe. This is a thing that I've been saying forever, right? Fruit juices are just as bad as soda, just as bad as, what is it? I mean, well, soda's like the big one, energy drinks, any sweetened beverage, and so they're saying that the sugar in fruit juice might cause, might be linked to cancer. So here's some interesting things you got to understand about the study. So the health events that were self-declared through a questionnaire. So again, this is like the flaw in so many of these food studies. When you see like a study and it's like, it's like people who drink lemonade are, 5 times more likely to have Alzheimer's disease. Well, how did they do that? Well, they would send people questionnaires and they would say, how much lemonade have you drank in the last 5 years? And people, people don't know. And it's the same thing here. It's like they sent people questionnaires and, they're like, how much soda do you drink? How much fruit juice do you drink? And, people probably try to answer that the best they can. But I mean, you want to talk about like even more science, like the science on top of science? Well, the science on top of science says that most people can't remember what they even drank yesterday, let alone what they've drank throughout the whole year, And I didn't dig into it enough to know like what did the actual study ask, but it was probably something like how much fruit juice do you drink, in a week? And is it like between 1 and 5, 5 or 10, 10 or 15? And even if you were able to answer that accurately, you have to know that, I mean, come on, dude, you don't know. You're going to probably not answer that right. You're going to probably answer that. You might be, if it's 1 to 5, 5 to 10, and your real number is 6, and you're guesstimating 5, well, that's a whole different section than 6 to 10, or like I'm saying, like if you're on one of those border numbers, the outcome isn't as accurate as you believe because now it's like a whole other percentage of the overall pie. So it's really hard. It's really sloppy, I should say, to try to make solid assumptions when your data is as sloppy as this. But this is what they do. I mean, this is what science is. This is what nutrition science is. It's ugly and it's imprecise and it freaks people the fuck out and it helps people sell billions of dollars of supplements. It helps Weight Watchers and Jenny Craig and Nutrisystem still stay in business. It lets shysters who just so happen to know how to do, marketing, run multi-million-dollar supplement companies. It's why gyms are it's why the healthcare industry is, trillions. I'm not even gonna say billions. I'm gonna say trillions of dollars because they just are telling people information based off of, nonsense. Right. But but here is my other thing too. The conclusion they make is, in this large prospective study, the consumption of sugary drinks was positively associated with the risk of overall cancer and breast cancer. 100% fruit juices were also positively associated with the risk of overall cancer. And then they say these results need replication in larger overall, in other large-scale prospective studies. So obviously, right? This is no surprise. The sky is blue. Duh. We know that sugar is very, very much linked to cancer. Sugar consumption, like if you're consuming a lot of sugar, you are loading a gun and you don't know what that's gonna do. And I'm not, but you have to understand like the differences of sugar. And in this study, they leave a very big open loophole. And I don't know if this is peer reviewed or whatever, but if I was the peer reviewing this, I'd be like, yo, you have to better define what you mean by 100% fruit juices. Because when you talk about 100% fruit juice, like I could go to a grocery store in the middle of the diabetes aisle, they have all those fruit juices there, and they tell you they're 100% fruit juices, right? But those aren't 100% fruit juices, meaning they're not coming from fruit, right? They don't, like Welch's grape juice isn't made in a, juice bar where they have a juicer and they're putting fresh grapes in a juicer and they're juicing fresh fruit and then bottling it. And then, a month later it gets to the grocery store shelf. That's not how that shit's made. Apple juice is not made from apples. It's definitely not made from apples that are grown, pesticide free, right? If you go, I don't know what I don't shop in the middle of the grocery store, so I don't know like what the big hot juices like mango, watermelon, kiwi, pomegranate, whatever it is, juice, right? That's not made from those fruits. It's made from chemicals. Okay, if you look at the back of a 100% fruit juice, you will see a laundry list of chemicals, all of which are basically just toxic to your body. Okay. Maybe somewhere in there it's like a blueberry extract or something, or a mango extract, and even that shit. It's like the loopholes in the food laws, because it's written by lobbyists, is so loose that this is not fruit, okay? And this is what freaks people out. Headlines like that where it says fruit juice may be linked to cancer, so people are like, oh shoot, I can't eat fruit anymore, and like nothing could be further from the truth. Yes, eat fruit. There's nothing not healthy about fruit. Like there's a war on fruit, okay? It's the keto people, even the paleo people are doing this shit, right? Even though like those are my people, I'm telling you, like when people tell me to not eat fruit, or that fruit causes cancer or fruit causes diabetes, it's like I can't help but laugh. I just cannot help myself but laugh. But if you drink fruit juice, if you drink, Welch's grape juice or apple juice or that pomegranate bullshit. By the way, I've been reading like a lot of studies, and it's like I was very interested in pomegranate juice and extract, and you'll find a lot of data on like pomegranate being very beneficial. You know why pomegranate's very beneficial? Because the studies that say that pomegranate's very beneficial to you were written by specifically POM. Those studies were written by people who work for POM. And it says it right there on the thing. Just go down to the bottom. This is when I read a study, that's the first thing I do. I go to the bottom of it and I'm like, who paid for this thing, right? And most of them are paid for by, some are it's like a grant by the government. Sometimes you got to dig pretty deep, because there's like these front groups that are funded by like Nestle and Coca-Cola. It's like, it's like a study on mangoes, and it's like paid for by the Friends of Mangoes. And who runs the Friends of Mangoes? Oh, Coca-Cola, Nestle, McDonald's. And so you just see like who writes this stuff, right? So what is my point with this? My point is that when is that they're trying to confuse people, I don't know if they're trying to confuse people. I don't know if they're trying to be provocative, but in this paper, they also don't define 100%. They say 100% fruit juice. They keep saying 100% fruit juice. We know it's not 100% fruit juice. It's 100% fruit juice, whatever that ingredient is. 100% fruit juice, not juice made from 100% fruits. 100% fruit juice. You see the difference there? 100% fruit juice is in a law, a bill somewhere that was written by the people from Welch's and Kraft Foods and whoever makes juices, right? Again, I don't shop in the diabetes section of the grocery store, so some of you might know this better than me. But whoever the juice companies are, I keep saying Welch's, but Mott's, right? They make stuff, right? Mott's apple juice. Their lobbyists go to Washington and they write a thing and they pay off, a bunch of congressmen and senators, and they say, hey, can you pass this thing that says, that we can call like yellow 4 and high fructose corn syrup and all this stuff, cornstarch and gluten, and can we do a thing where, like, if we formulate like this, we can call it 100% fruit juice? And the congressman's like, yeah, I got to take my wife. I want to go see Hamilton. So maybe if you can toss me some Hamilton tickets and maybe some tickets to go see the Giants play and let me take her out to a nice dinner. Yeah, I'll pass that shit. And next thing you know, 100% fruit juice, 100% fruit juice. You can put that shit on all the diabetes bottles. And so when they write a study that says 100% fruit juice tied to cancer, it's like, well, no, you're talking about the ingredients that make 100% fruit juice. We're not talking about juice from 100% fruit. We're talking about 100% fruit juice. Okay, I hope you understand that. That's what I'm saying. So that that study did catch my eyes, and again, it's like you gotta look at this shit like with real. You gotta look at it with like a fine tooth comb. You gotta like really like be critical, even if it like confirms your confirmation bias. Like this study actually does confirm my confirmation bias, but that doesn't mean I like how it's written. It's just garbage. It's just keeping jobs for people who got science degrees and couldn't get like actual, influential careers. It's like, it's Europe. It's right. It's like the socialist governments of France. It's like they gotta employ people. So they're like, let's just send people questionnaires every year and ask them how much sugary drinks do they have, so they can put a study out that tells you nothing. If you didn't know that sugary drinks, including sugary fruit juices, cause cancer after it being out for so long at this point, it's like you're hiding under a rock. This isn't science. This isn't like groundbreaking science. It's really sad. It's really just taking advantage of people who just don't understand this. And I also know that most people don't dig into the data, and they probably know that too. They're just like, we put the study out, we hold conferences, we invite journalists to come to the conferences, and we feed them, we put them up in nice hotels, and then we tell them this stuff, and then they write these things like The Guardian wrote, and everybody's got a job, and people read that stuff, and they think they're being informed, but it just doesn't, it's hot nutrition dog shit is what it is. Okay, let's move on to the third and final story here. And like I like to do, I like to make the third and final one a little bit more fun and upbeat. And I find this one very encouraging, and it really warms my heart. This was the title of this one is "Meet the First U.S. School District to Serve 100% Organic GMO-Free Meals." So there's this school district. It's the Sausalito Marin City District in California. And basically what they're doing is they've made it, starting this next school year, this August, they'll be the first school district in the country to serve their students 100% organic meals, sustainably sourced and free of genetically modified organisms. So that's pretty awesome. That's like really awesome, Now, I mean, look, is there garbage in the organic? Of course. Of course there is, right? Is organic, the title organic, a little bit of a scam? Yes. But that's not to say that it doesn't have benefits over like the GMO industrial agriculture crap. right? Like if you walk into a kid's cafeteria, I haven't been in a kid's cafeteria for a long time. I don't intend on going in a kid's cafeteria anytime soon. But I remember, like, I was a substitute teacher years ago, and I remember I had to go into a school cafeteria, and I just remember the smell of that place, and it was just so fucking foul. It was just so gross, and it was so like rancid, and I mean, I remember this when I was a kid, you know? And of course it was a joke when I was a kid. It was like, oh God, you want to eat the food in the school cafeteria? But now that I'm a holistic a-hole, like, I understand, like, this is a big problem. It's a big problem that kids go to school and they spend so much of their lives in school, and, you know, they go to lunch, and most kids probably don't bring their own lunch. A lot do, but I don't know. Maybe it's 50-50. I don't know. Maybe there's like more conscious parents out there who pack their kids lunch and try to give them something decent. Or there's like parents out there who give their kids still peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Which reminds me of a thing. Just I'm so ADD here, but I was in the store the other day, and I was checking out, and I just had bought, like, I don't know, some bananas or something. And there was a guy behind me, like a basket full of stuff. He started putting his stuff on the cart, and the girl at the register scans my stuff, and he didn't put the little divider thing between our groceries. And she grabs his, what was it? His bread. He had like this, he got like this whole, what is it? Like whole grain, like Nutri-Grain bread or whatever. And I was like, oh, that's not mine. That's this guy's back here. And this guy was like, you know, was he obese? I think he was obese. I think you could say obese. He was definitely like way overweight, not in very good shape. And he kind of made a joke. He's like, you trying to take my bread? I was like, no, man, I don't really eat bread. He's like, oh, I love bread. He's like, what am I supposed to use my peanut butter and jelly with? And I was like, you just spoke so many things to me right now that I find so interesting, that it's like that's your justification for bread, is so that you can make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. This dude was like probably hitting close to 50 years old. It's like this is what you eat. Not only do you make the peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, but you genuinely think you're actually doing good for yourself by making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich with multi-grain bread that you bought in the grocery store. I mean, there's so many levels of wrong on that I know, and I'm judging this person on. Is it right to do that? Probably not. But I'm not going to judge him, because that's what I'm a holistic a-hole. Of course I'm going to judge this guy. And I feel bad for him, because I'm like, he just doesn't know. Like, in his mind, he's getting the multi-grain bread, thinking like, oh God, I got to get this faggoty multi-grain bread. Can't even enjoy my peanut butter and jelly sandwiches anymore. All I want to do is just have it on white bread. Little does this guy know, the multi-grain bread he's getting has basically the same nutritional quality as, you know, as like garbage white bread. But whatever. That's a little sidetrack. I thought it was fun. So some parents are giving their kids, you know, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, probably, yeah, multi-grain bread, probably thinking they're doing something good. So kids' lunches are just absolute dog shit, right? We can all agree on that. And then we're just like so shocked that kids have, you know, record numbers of diabetes and obesity and health problems and autism and all these things. Oh my God, what's happening with the kids? I don't know. You go to a kid's cafeteria and they're drinking, you know, pasteurized skim, you know, cow jizz milk and chocolate milk. And, you know, if you go to like a middle school, it's like, you know, nachos and cheeseburgers and fucking, you know, gummy bears and shit. But then, you know, this Sausalito Marin city district is like, no, fuck that. We're going to give our kids 100% organic meal, sustainably sourced, which is pretty dope. GMO free. Now, I'm sure there's sugar, there's all kinds of carbs, there's probably a lot of bad shit, you know. But the fact that they're like, we know this is a problem. Like, we don't not just know this is a problem. We know this is like a huge problem. And we're going to try to help our kids. Like, it's not fair that kids are fat and are, you know, are dealing with health issues. It's not fair. It's not fair. They don't make the decisions here. They're just going along with the program. It's us adults who need to take responsibility. So the fact that like this is like, it took this long for one school district, just one school district to do this. And I know there's not a lot of money in schools. Like that's a huge problem. Like that is a huge, huge problem. And like, obviously that's political, which is just, it's so sad, dude. It's like so sad that our kids' education is governed by politics, and it's the politics that are keeping the kids stupid and fat. You know, it just makes me angry on so many levels. But it is nice that I don't even know how this happened, but you know, the school district said like, look, we gotta help the kids as much as we can. So we're gonna give them good quality food. And I think that's awesome, man. I just hope that other school districts, you know, yeah, it's gonna be hard. It would be almost impossible for every school district in the country to do it. And you shouldn't say impossible. Like, of course it's possible. You just have to have the resources allocated right. But we're talking about politics here. We're talking about the scum of the earth politicians. Are they just gonna pass more money for school districts to buy to be able to buy, you know, organic, GMO-free, sustainably sourced food? Definitely not. Why would they do that? That would make too much sense, you know? And I'd be interested to see like a real study to show like, okay, well, let's see what these kids' average, you know, test scores are, right? Do they start scoring higher on tests? Do they start performing better in schools? Then follow them long term and see like, well, okay, not only did they perform this way in school, but then like, what is their graduation success rate? What are their jobs and careers? What, are they volunteering? Are they you know, providing good for their community? I mean, this is stuff that I would be interested to see, because look, man, I don't know. I think at this point we have to just say, from millennials and older, like, we just got to cut bait. You know, we failed on so many levels. Right? Like if you're 18 and older right now, like, we got to stop giving a shit about all of us. Like, we're done. Like, stop worrying about us. I think now we have to get like Mad Max, right? Everyone 18 and older, it's like Mad Max now. It's like, you got to fight for survival. But if we want to like put resources into something, let's put it into the kids, you know? Like give these kids a chance, cuz they're all we got, you know? According to Alexander Ocasio-Cortez, the world's going to end in 12 years. So, you know, in 12 years, we got to have like 17, 18, 19-year-old kids, 25-year-old kids, people who are kids now that are like, okay, well, you know, my brain isn't complete, you know, it isn't completely deformed from eating nothing but drinking cow jizz milk and eating, you know, I don't even know if you can call them eggs, but whatever the hell they serve in the cafeteria. Give them good food. Give them good nutrition. Kids are the future. And let me tell you what else is the future. This podcast, the future. And thank you so much for listening and listening the whole way through. I certainly appreciate it. Every single week you all tune in. Every single week you show me tons of love and support. I love it. I love you. If you love the podcast, please tell all your friends and family about it. Share it on your social media. Put up a quote you like. Put up a stat you like. Send me some love through Instagram @HolisticAhole, Facebook HolisticAhole, Twitter HolisticAhole. Find me on all of them. Friend me up. Let's connect. Let's be cool. And if you're new here, make sure you subscribe. Go on to iTunes. Leave a 5-star review. And I will catch y'all on the next one. Thanks for listening. Peace.